Let's do this. I've taken notes. Hello witches, and welcome back to Activist Witch, where we discuss witchcraft and activism. You can call me Isha, my pronouns are she, they, and in today's video we're going to talk about the dumpster fire state of things, where all reactionaries, all fascists are out in full bloom, and they need addressing. They need to know that they can be loud, but they will never be the majority, and they will never fucking win. But before we get started, let me remind you that I've opened a Ko-fi, and if you like the work that I do here, you can support me directly there with a one-off donation, a monthly donation, or even get a tarot reading with me, Italian style. The low-income option starts at £5, and from now on, all my profits from tarot reading go split evenly between Kuchus to Gaza, who supports Palestinian refugees in Cairo, and the Good Law Project, who's gonna take the UK to the European Supreme Court of Justice, because trans rights are human rights. So if you'd like to support me there, thank you so very much. Oh boy, oh boy. So, first things first, you're a TERF, you voted reform, you think that you're a witch for Trump, you do not belong, you do not understand who is playing you for a puppet, and if you don't have ears to hear as to why, you can go. Don't worry about leaving comments, because I'm gonna block you if you do that. So be loud by all means, that helps me, okay? That being said, let's get into it. I have no fucking patience anymore. I have been patient. I have believed all my life that if you do your homework, if you are reasonable, if you don't police yourself, if you sound knowledgeable, you do your research, you put your ducks in a row, and that's how you're right, and that's how you do right things. No, you fucking don't. You are a racist piece of shit TERF like JK Rowling. You have enough money to buy your way through things. So in case you haven't noticed, what has been happening is a dumpster fire. I mean, the America knows because it's been going on since January for them. And here, don't worry, we are catching up very, very fast. I don't even know where to start, really. I should start by telling you that if you haven't watched our video called Illegal Women, where Raven goes in excruciating detail to explain to you what has happened in the last 2,000 years. Not just yes, 2,000 years. And you would like to understand what the actual facts are, you need to go there. You need to take your time, take a glass of wine, a cup of tea, whatever your persuasion brings you, and you need to chill, and you need to listen, and you need to learn. And once you've done that, you can come back and we can run together, because if you're not mad, you're not understanding what's going on. So, the thing that to me is most impressive after the supposed win that Sex Matter and for Scotland women have got at the UK Supreme Court ruling is that they are such sore winners. Like, I have never seen someone winning and still mourning. And I think there was a Reddit post today that summed it up perfectly. And it's like, why are they still so sore? In their perception, they won. Legally, supposedly, despite biology and despite facts, ironically, the UK and the TERFs have convinced everyone that legally a trans woman is not a woman, and again, nobody is scared about asking a biologist, nobody is scared, and this is very important, about listening to trans people or trans organizations. I'm not sure in how much detail we went onto it, but I feel that this needs stressing, because I've seen TERFs trying to use this kind of rhetoric saying, oh, this is why we won, they had nothing on their side. You know, why didn't they come and talk their side to the UK Supreme Court? It's because they couldn't defend themselves. Bitch, let me explain to you. No. Many an organization and many a trans person have begged the UK Supreme Court before this ruling. Can you listen to our lived experience? Can you listen to what actually trans people live and go through? And they were all rejected. Their testimony was all rejected. The only people the UK Supreme Court listened to are anti-trans organizations. Make no mistake, For Women, Sex Matters, LGBT Alliance, Trans Trend, which is such an insult as a name, those are not anything else. Those are not rights for women. Those are not LGBT rights. Those are anti-trans organizations. There is a difference between what you declare and then what you do with your actions. And if you look at every action that any of these organizations have taken in the years, it's not for anybody's rights other than hurting trans people. So whatever they declare themselves, you judge them on their actions, and their actions say they are just anti-trans organizations. Following me so far? Good. Let me find that post because I think it was so appropriate. Because it was genuinely like, yeah, I understand sore losers, but sore winners is just something that, I don't know, like it's so far removed from anything rational that I cannot put myself in their shoes and understand, because it is based on such cognitive dissonance that I'm gonna go on a limb here and say that because of all my marginalizations, I could never get away with the kind of cognitive dissonance and have people let me get away with it, because I was always questioned, double questioned, triple questioned, which is not a good thing just because you come from a lower level in the ladder. But it's definitely made me aware that when I speak anything, I need to have foundations, I need to have receipts. TERFs have never bothered for that. The way that they have bent over backwards to just what I feel is right. Like the fact that they managed in one go to get trans women, no matter their look or their passing, banned from anything that is a women-only space. But also, let's ban trans men, because now they look masculine. So if you had any doubt that this is only about how well you perform femininity, how well you're a girly girl, that should make it very clear for you. Anyway, sore winners. How is that a thing? There was this post of Gender Cynical, which is the opposite, as you can imagine, of Gender Critical. Haha. And they're just talking on Mumsnet about, oh, that was supposed to be such a happy moment. But then there's been backlash, and the media is kind of listening to them. Now, I don't know if you live in the UK, and I personally had to turn off everything. Like, I'm not someone that lives on their phone. Like, I don't doom scroll. I'm not often on Instagram. I'm more often than not on Blue Sky now, which is still mostly untainted by the right and far right, and therefore Trumpians and TERFs and that kind of people. They're there, but they're very well contained. But I'm not a terminally social media person. I don't know if it's a good or a bad thing. I get my problems somewhere else, don't worry, but not from there. But this last month, I actually had to pay attention of taking care of myself when I'm out and about and I hear the radio in the background, and all they're talking about, all the narrative is talking about, is how trans people are degenerates, and finally we have put them in their place with their silly erotic games, because wanting to present as the opposite biological sex, it's all that it can really be. It's a delusion, and how do we ever entertain that? And the subtext of all of that, which is not so subtext in fairness, because I think it was For Women Scotland, or one of the organizations that did this taking to the court, the Scottish ministers, was literally like, yay, we won this, now let's take it against immigrants, in case you forgot that you scratch a TERF and a racist and a fascist bleeds. So, I don't know, it's very peculiar to me that people don't seem to understand that this is all the same thing. Something that in this post on Mumsnet was sad, it was like, they lump us together with people that like Trump, and I was like, babes, you lump yourself together with that when you decide to be oppressive to minorities. So something that was very well summed up, and I was like, I'm so glad that somebody has that gift of the synthesis, because I am seeing too much red. My time to be reasonable is done. It's done. Like, I've taught you things, I've explained things. Raven had the patience of a saint to explain to you their lived experience in last 2 weeks' video. I'm done with that. You have your reading lists. Now the onus is on you. I will be fucking screaming. I will have no tolerance. Zero. I'm not here to explain to anybody that wants to do the counter argument anymore, because my very simple life that is limited in time and it's likely over the hill already, not up for debate. I deserve to live. I deserve to live here. I deserve to live happy with my spouse. And because these people have declared war on us, I have no qualms in going to war. Simple as. So somebody did this comment, and again, I think it's so emblematic that they all end up saying the same shit. So this comment said, I am reminded of the great YouTube video on the QAnon weirdos in search of a flat earth. One of the closing lines in particular, they want a world where they are right and their enemies are silent. The TERF crowd wanted Big Daddy government to come along and say, pack it up, you sillies, and for everyone who ever disagreed with them to say, oh God, I'm so sorry I ever thought trans people deserve the same rights as everyone else. You were right and I was wrong, and I'll remarry you or return to the family again because I was so wrong. And that didn't happen because, of course, it fucking didn't. It never will. And it's because the TERF crowd are not right. Graham Linehan's prophesied day of reckoning is a dream in the mind of a sad, divorced has-been. There will never be any trials. There will be no fabled day of the rope. It's all cope, it's all delusion. Usually I have the gift of synthesis. That did it better. That did it better than I could ever put it together myself. There's a point, if we want to drag it back to the fact that we are witches here. We've done 3 videos on that. I would urge you to go check them out, but the TLDR version is, no, if you're a TERF, you're not a witch. If you're a TERF, you're an oppressor. And historically, witchcraft is rebellion to the system. It's lovely how you try to picture yourself as the victim when you literally convince the law to bend over backwards to please you. So the fact that you're still not happy because you want everybody to agree with you, and there's only so much that the law can impose on the mind of people, still doesn't make you the victim. Something that always surprised me was the narrative of TERFs and gender critical are the victims of trans activists. And they call it a witch hunt. JK Rowling thinks of herself being someone that is witch hunted from her mansion, untouched by anything, with money coming out of her bum for generations. When you have money, you have power. As soon as Labour here got in power last July, she demanded a meeting with the cabinet to make sure that the cabinet promised her, she's a big donor of Labour, by the way, promised her guarantees to support gender-critical organizations, because she couldn't stand the idea that I'm not giving money to Labour, which every party needs to survive, by the way, if they're not going to do what I say about trans people. So if you're wondering why suddenly Labour went from trans women are women to, no, trans women are not women, we're wrong, we were wrong, I'm sorry. Yeah, money is the answer. So when you have money and you have power and you picture yourself as the victim, facts are against you, because money buys the right to be right and buys the law, apparently. So you can't have it both ways. You can try, you can say it, but everybody that has this much of critical thinking can literally see the consequences of things. Something that I saw, I still follow Jeremy Corbyn because I'm a Corbynista at heart. Could Jeremy do better? Of course, everybody could, but Jeremy radicalized me, so I still have a soft spot for that man that has spent the last 42 years fighting for the right reasons. The reason, by the way, that he's not the head of Labour, where it would have gotten us somewhere close to more justice, is because they claimed he was anti-Semitic. Why? Because before everybody woke up on the 7th of October 2023, he had always been saying that Palestine needs to be free. So that's the anti-Semitism of Jeremy, by the way, if you were wondering. Anyway, Jeremy, because he is half decent, makes a post on Blue Sky, I think somewhere else as well, saying, oh, this is such a sad day for human rights. Trans people are human beings. Which myself and Katie Montgomery went like, Jeremy, maybe we can do better than just we're human beings, but fine. And TERFs got in the comments telling him, oh, these are the people that you're siding with, posting a picture that says something about wishing cancer on JK Rowling. I'll give you a second so that you can reflect. So, big baddies, trans activists wish cancer on JK Rowling. Like to charge, reblog to cast. Okay, you got it? Bad people. How can you wish ill? How can you wish ill? Got it? You sat with it for a second? Okay. What has JK Rowling done to deserve such ill will? Can't possibly have done anything. Nobody is ever justified in wishing cancer. Let's look at the consequences, shall we? Trans activists wish cancer on JK Rowling. Consequence. Okay. JK Rowling wishes trans people don't exist, starts donating disproportionate amounts of money to every legal cause that can work against trans people. She funded the Maya for Starter case in, what was it, 2018, 2019? And she was the main funder behind For Women's Scotland and Sex Matters, taking to court the Scottish ministers that simply wanted for trans women to be included in diversity quotas for women. She paid for this to happen. She paid the lawyers that bent over backwards reasonability and law to have the UK Supreme Court sign that trans women are not legally women, which has consequences very, very practically. Let's get back to this bubble for a second. Trans activist wishes ill on JK Rowling. Consequence. JK Rowling wishes ill on trans people, pays money to change the law so that trans people cannot get as easily in public anymore. Because make no mistake, when the argument is bathrooms, I don't know if you have noticed, but being animals, we kind of have biological needs. Preventing people from using bathrooms when they are outside in the world means that you want to prevent those people to be outside in the world, because if they have no place to go and be safe, it's normal. I'm going to the bathroom to pee, to poo, to whatever, to even just lock myself in a cubicle for 5 minutes because I'm having a meltdown, which happens to me a lot. If you prevent people from doing that safely, you're actively preventing them from existing in the world. And make no mistake, this is what TERFs want. The entire argument of safety in bathrooms and changing rooms, no. The argument is, I don't want you to exist in public, because if you exist in public, you give other people ideas about what they can and cannot do. This is the argument. This is the reason why the Heritage Foundation loves this, because it gives them the premise of taking away anything that questions the possibility that the nuclear family is not the only way. Because if you start to tell people that they can take control of their body, that they can change the hormonal levels of their body enough to effectively be biologically the opposite sex of what they were declared at birth, you're taking down the microsocial level of capitalism that exists in the nuclear family, where a man who has a questionable penis is put arbitrarily on top of the hierarchy. That's the danger of trans people. Telling the world the hierarchy you've been put in does not have to be there. So again, let's go back to the idea that TERFs are trying to do of bad trans activists wishing ill on JK. What has ever happened to JK so far? You list them in the comments, I'm waiting. Where was she? In a yacht with the villain cigar a la Andrew Tate, drinking champagne. And she was like genuinely embracing the villain life of love when a plan comes together and I've taken rights away from people, from my yacht or my castle or wherever that is. So, consequences. Consequences is what you need to look at. Not the thought exercise of what if a manly man decides to claim self-ID and then come harass us. Girl, have you noticed that in the world men do harass you anyway? They don't need to pretend to be anything but what they are, because patriarchy already puts them on a higher level. By the way, do you remember when men were too afraid to say that they drank soy milk because they were afraid of phytoestrogens? So the idea that a man would pose as something as low as a woman in his mind to harass you, girl. And by the way, that is not to say that women cannot be abusers, but I'm not sure that that's a kind of discussion you're ready to have. But let me know when you are, because I have things to say. Now, something that I wanted to point out is people that are being decent. So, go check out Sylvie, Tarot Magbite, go check out Sapling Tarot, Imogen, go check out Kelly AnnMaddox, Amazing Ally. Go check out Emily, Witchcraft and Tarot, which... Now, I wish I had words to explain what it means when somebody that comes from so far up the ladder of privilege decides that it's worth understanding. And that is the best example that I can bring you of someone that could just take advantage of white feminism and decides, because it has the decency to understand the privilege that white feminism affords me is not right, it's not enough if it has to take down others to leave me up here, second step from cis white het man. So I invite you to go watch her video because it's heartwarming. Maybe I'm too cynical at this point. I'm not used to see people that have that level of privilege to risk it in a way and say, this is not right. It doesn't matter that it doesn't touch me, or it doesn't matter that it gives me an advantage. It's not right. In my head, that is the only way in which one can use privilege without privilege being a dirty thing. If you have privilege, you put it to the service of those who don't. You elevate their voices. You fight their fight because people listen to you more, because you are a white, cis woman, and pretty, and with a proper British accent. And you're a mother. Mothers have such level of respect in our society because, again, patriarchy has said, you give me the next generation as a white woman, I will give you, by default, I will make you believe by default that you have that respect. Then we can go in the entitlement that gives to some white women. But that's not the case here, so let's not go into that here. But I've done a video about the Maiden Mother Crone that talks about that. So that gives me hope. There's a point actually that Emily mentions that I thought is worth setting the record straight here, which was about Margaret Atwood. Because rightfully Emily goes and says, I think that The Handmaid's Tale sort of fits here because this is the first step. The UK Supreme Court ruling is the first step in taking away bodily autonomy, which makes no mistake, it's to take bodily autonomy away from white women to force them to have children for the next generation of fascists. I'm not even being Cassandra here, it's very, very clear. People in America maybe see it slightly better because it's slightly closer to them with the attack that there's been done in abortions and reproductive rights, but yeah, that's the same here, by the way. Because, as Raven said at the end of their video, if you don't want immigrants to replace the population to still do the jobs that are low enough for people not to want to do them, where do you think the next generation is going to come from if you don't force women to have white children? So, yeah. But anyway, I knew that there were discussions about where Margaret Atwood actually stands on. And at some point, there was the rumor that she could be a TERF. And I was like, seems weird for what I know of The Handmaid's Tale. So I went to the best resource of information on these things, that is Raven. Because Raven lives and breathes this kind of information, because our lives quite literally depend on them. And Raven explained to me that the issue is that TERFs appropriated the language and the characters of The Handmaid's Tale, as usual, with their flair for victimhood while they oppress someone, which is, honestly, the cognitive dissonance leaves me speechless. So yeah, in their heads, TERFs are the oppressed in Gilead, and anybody that supports trans people or trans people themselves are handmaidens. And I think Margaret Atwood tried to explain to TERFs and gender critical, you didn't fucking get my story if you think that, because queer people, and people of color, by the way, were getting the walls, were killed immediately. So if you think that that's, no, you cannot appropriate this. So I think that's the issue that came there, is because TERFs appropriated or tried to appropriate a lot, making themselves the victim of the story, while Margaret Atwood was very vocal in explaining, no, babes, you've got it wrong, and no, gender critical people do not understand that they're not the victims in this, and more importantly than ever, anyone that supports trans rights is absolutely not enforcing the system. The system is fascism, and fascism wants anything that is not under the rule of the white cis-het man killed. So, which is actually pretty much current to the reality of situations. We have concentration camps open and going proudly, shown at presidential rallies in the US. Not that they ever stopped since 1945 in different forms, but I think it's the first time that we see them displayed like that, as something to be proud of, as something to be a legacy of the 47th President of the United States. Yeah. On the note of TERFs and JK Rowling and consequences, I've made a post about it. Maybe you have seen it, maybe you haven't. I think I made a post on Instagram, and I've made a post on YouTube on the community tab. In case you haven't seen it, I'm gonna say it here. Do you remember that my third video was about Harry Potter, and how if you are a witch that found witchcraft through, you know, the interest that could have been reading Harry Potter, you really need to leave Harry Potter behind. You need to leave Hogwarts behind. I don't fucking care that it was your childhood. It was Raven's childhood. But no. And here's why. A, JK Rowling has said openly that anybody reading, talking, buying merch, writing, saying anything that acknowledges the name Harry Potter, she considers as directly supporting them, which is kind of true, and I'll explain you practically why here. You may not buy merch, you might not buy books anymore. If you are a decent person, you don't go to the, I don't know, WB experience, whatever, or you buy the games, whatever that is. I've had a lot of people come to me and say, what about fanfiction? Like, fanfiction is reclaiming. Okay, it's 300 years in the future, and for some reason we still have computers, communities, fanfictions, and somebody reads, I don't know, a Snape Wives kind of thing, whatever, and wonders, oh, I wonder what's the original text of this. And there's something that is hopefully an evolution of Wikipedia that is still neutral, and they find out that it comes from Harry Potter, and Harry Potter was written by JK Rowling. They click and follow the rabbit hole of Wikipedia 300 years in the future to check out the Wikipedia of JK Rowling, which will have, for reporting facts, it will have to feature the stances of JK Rowling, what her life was about as a person, not just an author. Now, we could debate that actually in her stories you can tell that there's racism, that there's already transphobia, and there's a lot of issues. Sean has made an amazing video about that you don't need to listen to me, go listen to him. But yeah, the story is also shit. and stolen. But let's pretend that you like these characters so much that now they are yours. They are not. People 300 years in the future, if you still talk about Harry Potter, will go find JK Rowling and will go find what she was standing for. And I guarantee to you, the debate will still be on. And some people will still go on, "Ah, was that really so wrong though?" When you project the art of someone into eternity, you project their ideas into eternity. There's no death of the author, by the way, that only exists in scientific papers and when the author is actually dead. And there's no point in trying to preserve entertainment over the literal human rights of people, which is, if you had doubts before, if you thought that she was just a weird older lady that had too much time to spend on Twitter, now it's been given proof to the fact that because she has too much money to do anything good with it, she can directly affect the rights to exist of people. So you don't need to give me explanations. You don't need to give me excuses. You should stop giving excuses to yourself. There's no way to enjoy any form of the existence of Harry Potter or the characters or their names that is not still supporting JK Rowling and therefore the oppression of trans people. That being said, around the time that I opened my channel, I was watching different Witchtube channels that I watch now. You will notice that in my first video I mentioned 2 channels that have never been mentioned again, and never will be. But they will be now, because they have done bad things. One was Alwyn Oak, which I kept in my background for like a year before I started to open my channel. Alwyn has done more than one video, very proudly, saying and focusing on the fact that she's a Slytherin. One video was entirely about wardrobe and how important Harry Potter was for her. Because I had watched Alwyn and she was a constant feature in my living room. Like, she was keeping me company a lot. So I had the reasonable belief that she was a half-decent person, until I realized her entertainment is more important than my rights or the rights of my spouse. So at the time, because I had this appreciation, in total humbleness, I left her a comment on that video saying, "Hey, maybe you don't know, but the writer of Harry Potter, JK Rowling, bad person that does bad things. So it's problematic to support that, to promote that, to do a video just about, you know, a world that she created. I'm very glad to explain more if you'd like. Please do consider that the rights of people are more important than your entertainment." Alwyn did not reply to the comment, and you'd think, oh, you know, she has many. However, plenty of TERFs replied to that and ripped into me with some terms that I'm pretty positive the YouTube comment algorithm actually blocks, so they need to be actually approved manually to go there, but conjecture. So Alwyn ignored that, but let TERFs rip into me. Around the same time, ironically, I think around the time of Witchfest 2023, Dr. Angela Pucca, who I had to have a soft spot for because she's Italian and I'm half Italian, and she talked about stuff that I knew firsthand. I followed Angela on Instagram. That year, Angela was invited to Witchfest, which I would argue should look into who they invite and where they stand in the future. So Angela goes to London and takes a picture at the platform in King's Cross, 9.5 fucks, which is what it is in my head, with a... Yeah, I know, but it's 9.5 fucks in my head, because that's how many fucks they give about human rights. She even has merchandise on her. I think she has a scarf of whatever house from Hogwarts. Oh yeah, the pretentious intelligent ones want to be Ravenclaw one day, because my narcissist ex wanted to do the same. Okay. She posted this picture, and with my naivety, same good intentions with Alwyn, I leave her a comment and I slide in her DMs. Humility first. You still find this comment, by the way, like you can see the tone that I used in that, because people have found it after I mentioned it in my post. And I'm like, hey, maybe you don't know. I love what you do. You're an academic. You must know how important it is when you decide to stand with something, or if you decide to share something without understanding what it means to stand for something. So, hey, let me explain. Supporting or sharing anything Harry Potter related affects the work and notoriety of JK Rowling. JK Rowling is quite literally actively trying to make people disappear, trans people. So, hey, be nice to know that you're an ally. She also lets TERFs in her comments rip into me. People saying that, what was the story? Yeah, I'm I'm derailing the conversation. That is a conversation about Angela being nice in a picture, going to Witchfest. Why are we talking about trans rights here? Maybe because for me it's an optional, but... No, the most important thing here is that Angela did see my comment and replied. And her gaslighting reply under a picture of her at an Harry Potter coded place, coded very obviously like 9.5 fucks, with a Hogwarts scarf that tells me to my face, oh, it's well known that I support trans rights. Babes, put your money where your mouth is. You do not support trans rights if you have a picture of yourself with a book of Harry Potter, if you have a picture of yourself in front of 9.5 fucks, if you have a picture of yourself all proud of being a Ravenclaw. Those two things don't go together. You can try and say it, you're just gaslighting me. So after that, unpleasant as it was, because you know what? The same way that Angela and Alwyn clearly enjoyed the entertainment that Harry Potter was for them, Angela and Alwyn were entertainment for me. But it's very obvious to me that if they are shrugging, they are actively supporting a literal fascist that has spent money to make sure that trans people now have trouble going outside. Like, just saying have less rights does not deliver. Have trouble go outside, because you go outside and you cannot use a bathroom, you potentially cannot go outside, you cannot be safe. What are you gonna do, soil yourself? Like, so yeah, it's a chain of events. So if they couldn't give up their entertainment, I could give up them as being entertainment for me. And I'm putting this information out there because, I mean, at the time it happened and I don't think I had 100 subscribers. And also at the time I was just like, I make my choices. I can't tell people what to choose. I still can't. But I can definitely give you information to make your own educated decisions based upon. Something that came up in the comments of that post, which is worth sharing still, and also made me unsubscribe to another witchy channel, is That Darling, who apparently has said incredibly racist, borderline Nazi things on their own Discord, was called out, never said sorry, had an interview with Angela, and Angela, going into this discussion, just supported That Darling, saying, oh, people are so sensitive nowadays. Again, I'm giving you information, do with that what you will. I told you, I wasn't the first one to fire shots in this war, but I can fight it. So anybody that thinks the silence will keep them safe, there's not gonna be silence here. You do pay the consequences of what you say and what you do. And if I see you say it or do it, I will make sure that everybody that listens to me will know as well where it sits. Hope you have fun in Hogwarts. There's a point that I took note. I should have mentioned before when I mentioned allies. AnnMaddox is one of them. Thank goodness for people like her that have that kind of reach and still decide to say the right thing. She's on the right side of history for Palestine. She's on the right side of history for LGBT rights. She's on the right side of history for what we say about Trump. something that has surprised me is that both in her comments and in some of the comments that Emily got was this idea of, yeah, witches can be political, but they don't necessarily have to be on the side of politics that you are on. And to these people, I mean, unfortunately, I always default on being rational, and I'm like, receipts. Like, I don't need to convince you that you're not a witch if you claim to be on the side of the right, because the right is conservatism, is reactionary, is not wanting things to change and oppress people to keep that hierarchical structure. Keep means it's currently on. So anything that has to do with maintaining the status quo, it's not rebellion. Witches and persecuted people called witches, and anything that has to do with the history of witchcraft, is rebellion to the system. The threat of people being drowned, being burnt, having witch finders go and seed doubt in communities, there was a threat used against people at the margins that did not align with the status quo. So when your representative is currently the psychopath in charge of the United States, when the people you support have currently paid money to change the law as they like it, despite the fact that it's factually incorrect, you are not the oppressed. You are not on the side of the oppressed. You're the abuser. You don't get to call yourself a witch. Historically, you are not a rebel. You're a fascist. So you can keep trying and saying things. People are learning that words need to mean something. And so, witches for Trump? No. No. TERFs that are witches? No. I know, you're very right, Trump. Mao. Fucking Mao. Correct. Artois disagrees with you. You cannot want the end, the genocide of people, claiming victimhood. You're not a rebel. You are serving the system because you think that serving the system will allow you to have the privileges that the system and who is at the top promises you. But in the case of Witches for Trump, is completely forgetting the fact that he's a indicted sexual assaulter, but you think that maybe it's positive that he's gonna get rid of immigrants or whatever other thing you think it's worth compromising any other principle for. In the case of TERFs, you have decided that, you know what, maybe it's convenient to say that biology makes me inferior, because I'll always be inferior than men, but maybe men can keep me in the second step of the ladder that way. Right-wing women, white feminism, by the way. So, you can say those things, but we are not that stupid, we are not that ignorant. History speaks for itself. Now, I am at fault for having this bizarre idea that time moves in one direction and that direction is forward. And that gave me the delusion that therefore you cannot stop progress, which is true in the grand scheme of things. But it's also true that progress has never been linear. And so, because we are limited to one lifetime, which is on average slightly under a century, the part of progress and evolution that we see can be, if we're unlucky on our timeline, can be a loop going backwards. So I think we are in that loop right now. History is cyclical, and the point is you do 2 steps forward and then you have to take 1 backwards. And eventually it always goes forward. But I think that it gets hard when you realize you might not see forward in your own lifetime. I am very conscious that I might not see forward in mine. And that's not nice, I admit. You have to have the farsightedness of accepting the fact that you're not doing this for your own self-interest. You're doing this to leave a place better than you found it for whoever comes next. And ironically, the issue with right-wing women, white feminism, and admittedly all TERFs, all witches that think that they can be witches and support Trump. Andrea Dworkin has a kind of sympathetic view of them in her 1983 book, Right-Wing Women, that speaks about their understanding of patriarchy. And Andrea Dworkin is just simply convinced, oh, no. Right-wing women know exactly how bad patriarchy is, how bad men are. They are in power, they can do shitty stuff and get unpunished. The difference between progressive people and right-wing women is that they bought the promise of the patriarchy. And they're like, well, I'm white. Most of the time. They're like, okay, I might not be able to take down the system in my lifetime, but I can play by the rules of the system in my lifetime. And so if I become a wife, I have a man that protects me from other men. If I become a mother, I am owed respect because I have given birth to the next generation. And those, notice, are all entitlements based on what? Biology. Biology means that you had to work for fucking nothing to just be entitled to things. Guess what is that? Privilege. So it makes complete sense that from the patriarchal point of view, biology on what usually a man that is in a delivery room looks at a baby, decides on genitals, and that's your life for the next 80 to 100 years. That is the power that patriarchy wants to decide. And it needs to give you a carrot with a stick. Right-wing women simply bought the carrot, which is kind of ironic also in the visualization, phallic way that a carrot is. I think it's very apt, unfortunately. But yeah, it's the thing of, I'll buy the promise because that will buy me some kind of privileges under this system. I don't need to dismantle the system because I will not likely dismantle it in my lifetime, but at least I'll get some advantages now. So the idea is that everybody recognizes patriarchy bad. The patriarchal bargain the right-wing women do, which includes TERF, people for Trump, women specifically for Trump, because honestly, how do you go for a convicted sex offender genuinely believing that that's what you're doing and it's good? It could be you, by the way, but as long as it's not, eh? So that's the... I don't even know if it's worth calling it a betrayal. I don't think it's a betrayal. I think that we were never part of the same group. I think it's a mistake to think that under patriarchy, if you're not a cis white hat man, then we're all grouped together. We should be, because if we were all grouped together, cis white hat women, cis black or people of color women, yes, in my head, in my innocence, I've always thought if you're not at the top of the ladder, you understand that everybody under the top spot needs to coalesce together and fight to break that ladder. Yeah, I realize now my naivete. Everybody who is on a step that is not the bottom one will most likely be more ready to oppress whoever is under them in the belief that by doing that, they gain favor with whoever is above them. And I've learned that from Talia Bhatt, which was a very, very sad awakening for me. I'm naive. I believe in the good of people because I am the main person that I compare them with, but I always forget that my upbringing was not average, standard, or normal. The things that I had to accept and survive that made me understand, oh God, this is horrible. I hope nobody else has to go through this. No, a lot of people go through life thinking, this was horrible. Everybody needs to go through this because otherwise they're not as strong as me. Survivor bias, hey. So yeah, the sum up of that is, if you're a witch and you think that you are leaning politically on the right, you're a fucking abuser, that's what you are. I'm not sorry. I have experience enough with abusers to be able to say that confidently. I'll close this up with the last point that I have on my note. I'm sure that there's more, but I think I've ranted enough. Last note that I took was, check out Trash Discourse. They make video essays. I don't know how they make technically so many in such a short amount of time. When we do video essays, it's a work of months. They recently made a video about the importance of armed resistance, where armed is just so that whoever actually wants to attack you thinks twice, and how that worked at the time of the Black Panthers and such. So, yeah, I think we've got to a point where peaceful protest and being reasonable, we have seen, does not pay if we don't have enough money to buy judges, people. So I think it's just interesting to learn history, to understand where we come from, what worked, and what might work in the future, just to make educated choices for ourselves. That being said, I really hope that until the next video, we can all hex the patriarchy together, because what else is there to do, man?